by our bloggers or authors are of their opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, municipality, individual, or anyone or anything.
He's a surgeon. He's a 100-ton boat captain. He's a lieutenant on Seaside Heights Beach Patrol in New Jersey. He's a member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. He's Dr. Michael Kachmar. Need answers to your medical questions? We have them. Listen in to hear latest on medical topics related to all that and more.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Michael Kachmar. How are you doing today? Today's date is, what is today? April the 12th, our year of our Lord, 2025 AD. Thank you, Jeremy. We're live right now in our studios. And I'm Dr. Michael Kachmar. I'm a board-certified reconstructive foot and ankle surgeon. Yeah. I'm on staff. I've been in practice for over 35 years. Yeah. On staff at multiple hospitals. I do a lot of surgery over the years. We have this show. We've been doing this, 6, 7 years now. I have my sidekick here, Jeremy. You want to say hello, Jeremy?
Hey, guys. How you doing? You know me. I'm your old pal, Jeremy. Right?
Yeah. And we basically talk a lot about medicine, some politics when they come together. And so we got a couple things today just want to talk about. We are on all the platforms. Jeremy, can you just put up our stuff here? So for people who are who are listening to the podcast, we do have we're on YouTube, Rumble. So if you want to see us, you could see the real time, and we have a lot of visual stuff that we use.
Yeah. So yeah, if you like us and subscribe, if you subscribe for us on YouTube. And you like us on Facebook, you'll get notifications for when we go live. As far as everything else goes, after our show is finished on our Saturday mornings, it goes up into like iTunes, Spotify, you name it. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can just type in Scrubbing Up with Dr. Michael Kachmar, and you'll find us. And we have a backlog of really great episodes full of information from Dr. Mike and I, and I think you'll have a ball with it. We usually have a laugh, don't we, Mike?
Yeah, and there's a lot of information there. So you go to JerseyShoreFootandLegCenter.com. We have a lot of information, medical information there. You could call us. We'll give you the other number for the office number. If you want to get us in the office, it's 732-269-1133. And if you want to. What else do we have? Do we have the web page?
Yeah, the web page is JerseyShoreFootandLegCenter.com.
Good. All right, good.
Hit that, and you'll learn everything that Dr. Michael Kachmar does.
So we have a couple things we want to talk about today, and then we'll talk a little politics at the end.
Sure thing.
But I used to be a visiting doctor down in British Virgin Islands, and when I was down there, we dealt with these cases they call dengue fever. Basically, it's transmitted by mosquitoes. It was a little scare back.
That was like malaria, right?
Yeah. Malaria is, and yellow fever is by mosquitoes also. But this is dengue fever. So the CDC, this was one day ago, the CDC in the United States issues urgent warning for high-risk areas as serious fever cases soar. Worst year for cases on record. It might be because of the wet season. There's been a lot of rain down in the...
A lot of still water where these mosquitoes can multiply really good.
So here, Traveling World Tour World reported that on alert, noting that locations like the U.S. Virgin Islands, Canada, believe it in Canada, United States, Mexico, it's all over the place, Jamaica, Dominican, but definitely down south, Puerto Rico, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Bahamas are all high risk for this mosquito-borne disease.
I don't like it happening in Canada. That's our 51st state.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of bug problem in the summertime.
Yeah,
that's the problem. And so it's definitely down in the Caribbean. It's bad. And the dengue, and I'm going to spell it. It's DENGUE. I pronounce it dengue. Can lead to symptoms like high fever, severe headache, nausea, and vomiting, according to the World Health Organization. More severe cases can result in bleeding gums or nose, weakness, blood, or vomiting in the stool, and even death. It affects the platelets, so the first time you could, after subsequent infections, it lowers the platelets. You could bleed then. But they call it, some places call it broke bone fever. It hurts. It could hurt.
Does it actually break bones?
No. It's just that it feels like you got a broken bone. It feels like you have a broken bone.
Wow, that don't sound too good. Yeah.
And so the current surge in infection comes after a record-breaking year for the disease. In fact, the World Mosquito Program called 2024 the worst year for dengue cases on record. And there's, meanwhile, other vector-borne illnesses such as malaria are also on the rise in warmer areas. You could blame it on whatever you want to blame it on. But here's the thing. What I want to make a point is with this warning is if you're going on vacation, people are going in the wintertime, but also in the spring and in summer. You go to Puerto Rico, you go into the Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, maybe Turks and Caicos, Antigua, anywhere in the Caribbean. You have to be really careful. And most people in the United States, we think about mosquitoes at night, like early in the morning or dusk and dawn,
right.
And they're small. These mosquitoes that pass this on, the ones that I know in British Virgin Islands, they're big, and they got like a striped tail. They're huge, but they bite you during the day. They like to hang out in cold areas. So I'll give you an example where I had one almost bite me, but this is real common. You're in a bar, beach bar, right? It's 1 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock during the day. It's hot as hell,
Air conditioning blasting.
Well, you're outside, but then they go, hey, where's the bathroom? You go in the back. Now, a lot of these are not air conditioned, but it's in the back, and it's cold. It's cool back there.
It's cooler, yeah.
And you go back there, and it's dark too. A lot of them don't have really good lighting, and you go take a pee, or you sit on a toilet bowl, whatever. Those mosquitoes, that's where they get you. They'll bite you right in the ass. According, excuse the pun.
Really?
So they'll bite you during the day. So what do you do? Well, so it's not just necessarily at night.
Mike, I hide from them. I got this British blood.
Right.
They absolutely love it.
Well,
it's like their favorite thing.
I think the best way, from my opinion, is two things you need to do. One is you want to cover up.
Yeah.
It's funny when you go down to the Caribbean, you can always tell the tourists. This white and black, kind of thing. But all the Americans, tourists who go there, they wear shorts. Most of the local island people, they have jeans on, even when it's hot, and they do that for a lot of different reasons. But you cover up, and I would recommend that at night you wear, your legs are covered. Maybe you want to put a pair of socks on, but you want to be covered up. Also, rash guards, long sleeve shirts. I wear long sleeve shirts when I'm down there all the time. Less place to get bit, and I wear a pair of, some kind of long pants.
See, I'm a homebody, and I usually I hibernate during the summer. So I actually haven't had a mosquito bite in 2 years, and that's massive.
Well, I think where the problem is when you go on vacation. Some people go on vacation, they may not necessarily be a beachgoer like you're not. But they go out to dinner, and they got their shorts on. So, and also there are bug repellents. There's all kinds of. I'm not going to get into the specifics. Excuse me, but I just want to tell you it's getting worse. And this is. You feel sick from this.
Yeah.
And I've had patients, and it's rough. And then if you get it again,
it could be worse.
It could be worse because what happens is it seems like you get it. And if it did or didn't affect your platelets, but the second time and third time you get it, that's where you could really go into a crisis.
Yeah.
There was some things about pregnant women. I think you got to be careful if you're pregnant, for sure, with mosquito bites. But I just want to throw it out there, and it's not getting better; it's getting worse, and it's an issue out there for a lot of people. A lot of people should be thinking about it. So that's and you can see this article. So that's that. You come back.
Were you on your thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, you can come. We're going to talk about another one. So just go back to me. Be aware of it, and it's a lot of people go to the Caribbean, and you got to be really careful. Now, the other thing
that means you got to get your bug off spray.
Yeah.
You gotta double up.
Cover up.
Don't just trust those little bracelets that are supposed to magically make everything go away from you.
No.
Yeah.
Cover up.
Cover up. Spray anything you can.
Now the other
and for your little ones, because your little ones are going to be the ones that this thing is going to be the worst for her.
Right.
Yeah.
So next thing I want to talk about too is I want to bring this up, and don't go yet to the video, but we're seeing more and more poor quality of medical care. And I've been banging this drum,
Yeah, but you're not wrong.
A lot of it's, and I just talked to a plastic surgeon buddy of mine who's been in practice for 30 years. We're seeing this, everybody and their brother, this DI, diversity, lower of standards, and to me, it's a level of, affirmative action. We had this in the 70s and 80s, and the Supreme Court got against it. Affirmative action, for people who don't know, was pushed by the Carter administration. So basically, it wasn't how smart you are, how good you were at your, taking tests and getting grades. It was how poor you are, minority, and we're going to put you in these positions of airline pilot, doctors, whatever. And it was a total failure, and also it was unconstitutional. They did the same thing with the previous administration.
We found that out from air traffic controllers and pilots and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody made a joke. I think it was Rob Schneider. He said, the one thing you're not going to think about when you're in a plane is, boy, I hope my pilot is diverse.
Yeah.
You're going to think, no, I really hope this pilot knows how to fly, knows what he's doing.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how much we say it. People, I watch the internet, and there's people in there who they're just totally fucking morons.
They get brainwashed.
And they're so brainwashed. Yeah. But I don't apologize anymore. I just like whatever. But here, it is an interesting case here.
You'd be apologizing forever if you did.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one, and I don't know who the doctors are, what went on here, but it's interesting. So go to the video here. So boy, 11, put in a medically induced coma after complications from routine surgery. That caught my eye. I'm like, well, what do you have?
What routines? Yeah.
So his 11-year-old boy from Wisconsin had been put in a medical induced coma following complications from a routine tonsil surgery, as per his family statement. On March 17th, I don't want to tell you, underwent a standard procedure to remove his tonsil, but complications arose. His parents, shared an update. And what they said is, they explained his son had experienced a post-tonsillectomy hemorrhage in his right carotid artery. First of all, I asked Dr. Kadersh, I've assisted on carotid artery repairs, You go from the outside and you go in, and I asked, but I never worked on the, tonsil. I didn't work with an ear, nose, and throat doctor. I don't think I ever assisted. But I'm like, how hard or easy it is to from the tonsil to invade or damage the carotid artery or vein.
Yeah.
And Tom's like, that seems like pretty hard to do. You have to, so anyway.
There's just too much in between.
So anyway, well, listen, I don't know. There's a picture, of the poor kid. And anyway.
Look at that lad.
So they had to have a second operation, but when they did the second operation, he suffered cardiac arrest, coded on a table for 10 minutes before doctors were able to revive him. Afterwards, he was intubated for safety. So Bob, he was in a coma for 10 days, and
does this end happily?
They say he's home recovering. Let me see, Tails online the same day we told him his tonsils removed and a little complication. Supposedly he's doing better. I don't know, how it's going to turn out to the long term. But go back to me. Yeah. But I bring this up because I see this so many times. I see it personally in my life. I had patients come to my office who were totally screwed. I had a lady come in, and, and again, I don't know I have to really drill down, but a lady had a minor shoulder surgery. Now her arm is can't move it. It's been 8 months, 2 months. It takes 6 months for rotator cuff, but this woman has numbness tingling in her hand. She can't bend her elbow. Obviously something's going on. And the doctor's like, that's not my problem. It's not nothing with the shoulder. Maybe it's something with her neck. Maybe, she, it's almost like she had a stroke. But my point being is that, I see these people coming in after they have these surgeries, and the instead of the predictable amount of time for them to come around, it's 4 or 5 times the predictable time. And the complications are just, they're just rolling along, and the doctors are like, oh, well, that's what it is. We never had that kind of, what do you call it, perception on that. We never thought that that would be reasonable. But now you have a lot of people who are being after Affordable Health Care Act, right? What happened is that Barack Obama, everybody, it's the greatest president in the world, and all the Democrats. It wasn't just Barack Obama who did that. They shoved it down the American people's throat, affordable health care. And what that did is that put corporate America into medicine. That's what you have now. You have corporate medicine, corporate America. So they're buying, and it's the bigger practice. I just had a primary doctor call me up, actually come in for a patient, and he said that they're squeezing him. The hospital administrator came in. He was working 3 days a week. He's a primary geriatric doctor, in primary family practice. They said, listen, he's working 3 days a week. That was the deal he got, 3 days a week, but 3 days a week, but long days, long days. And now they said, listen, we want you to work 5 days a week, and you got to see more patients, and you got less time with each patient, less time. They want like 15 minutes for a new patient. They want to scale. So it's all about productivity. They don't give two shits. I mean, he didn't say anything. They didn't argue with him about the quality of care. It's that they told him straight out, you're not making enough money. You're not making your just not making enough money. Now I see a lot of in other places they hire on these surgeons, and how you got paid is basically how much surgery you do. You eat what you kill. So in other words, somebody comes in and they have an ailment, an injury, whatever. It could go either way, or maybe really conservative therapy will take care of it, but they push the surgery because it's more money. You see what's happening?
Yeah.
Now, there used to be a lot of safeguards. Like I know people say, well, isn't an insurance company going to say something, unnecessary surgery? They don't know. If you put in, the criteria, that's the problem. Insurance companies don't watch it. It's just a matter of doing business. They just raise the rates. As long as they're making a profit, they could give two shits. What about malpractice? A lot of people, don't want to go down that road, or they don't know. So you see the excellence going down. There's a lot of people in medicine now. You can't even touch them. If you say something to them, you approach them like in a hospital situation, they'll sue you. You say, listen, you're not competent. So there's no peer review.
Will do that. We were just talking about that on Dr. Jasper's show. People will do that just to get the money, irregardless of your treatment. That is happening like wildfire.
What do you mean, sue? You mean
sue a doctor just for getting a prize and then running with it?
Yeah, but
it happens all the time. It's ridiculous now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I mean, I don't know how many malpractice, but I can tell you right now. Part of me would say that malpractice is a good thing if it stopped a lot of the You see what's happening is
it's getting abused though sometimes.
No, I don't think so. I disagree with you. I don't see that. You could say that, but
I've seen it with other friends of mine that are doctors, and and that could be just a very, it's just pertaining to these people only, but I've seen some patients that are just.
You have that, but I tell you what, if there was tons and tons of cases, it's not effective. Let's just say you're right, because I don't think the numbers are right. Then you would think that these doctors would stop doing unnecessary surgery and risky surgery that is not necessary, and so they don't get sued, but they still do it. So I don't know where I can tell you right now, I see them coming to my office, and a lot of times what will happen is if they do get sued, those doctors may stop doing that type of surgery.
Yeah, but if you've got a patient, right, and you've sat down with them during your initial, and you've told them everything that's going to happen for them, what needs to be done, then so you start your treatment with them. And then they decide, you know what, I'm going to go see this other doctor instead. And that doctor has a different idea than yours, and he starts doing it. It messes up. They come back to you, and then they want to sue you because they think you started it from the beginning. That is happening a lot out there. When they're bouncing around, they realize they screwed themselves, and now they want a cash grab.
Well, that might be the case, but I'm telling you right now, my point of my thing
happens more often than people think.
My perception and what I see in the literature and what I see personally is that there's less and less peer review. There's less and less evaluation of how the procedure needs to be done or not.
Yeah.
In the hospital, when I was the chairman of the department in many hospitals, we would look at every case that every doctor did. They would be screening. And if you're doing, a lot of cases and you're having, say, your case takes 3 hours when it should take an hour for everybody else, we're going to call you in. We're going to look at your charts. We're going to see what's going on, and we're going to try to make you better. See why you're so slow. Are you having complications? Are you doing, what's going on? That's gone. That has been, a lot of it is just not there anymore because, you have, if you have a big group, say you have, investment banker has a big foot and ankle group, like podiatry group like me, and there's 20 doctors. Well, you're going to go after those doctors in a peer review meeting. They're going to bring their lawyers in. They're going to say, go scratch. Yeah. And then the hospital's like, well, back off, because they don't have the money. They don't have, $500,000 to spend on lawyer fees to stop somebody from doing something that you think is maybe off the Richter scale.
Stopping that. So peer review is done.
Well, it's not. It's very hard to do, and the legality. People suing
because then who watches the Watchmen?
Nobody. And you would think that the insurance companies would kick in. So you have what's out there? What has been out there to stop unnecessary surgery, malpractice? Shitty doctors working. Abusement of the system. Well, you used to have insurance, okay. But insurance is still good. Like Medicare is good. If they're looking for fraud and abuse now, especially with Elon Musk, so that's a good thing. But sometimes it's hit and miss with them. I think they're overwhelmed. The other thing would be insurance companies. Well, insurance companies, Medicare, but insurance companies. The other thing would be hospital and the hospital medical staff. That's being weaned down, cut down. So and then the third thing would be is malpractice cases. There is I have lawyer friends. There is a reason for that. It could, put a spotlight on terrible cases.
Yeah.
So I'm not so against malpractice, and if it, but
but they got. I mean, they've gotten to the point where they have doctors whose only job is to
it's been like that for years.
To prove
20 years like
that these doctors did wrong. Yeah, but that's nuts though. It's 20 years. It's 20 years, but it's still nuts.
No, I can tell you right now, no doubt about it that there's been a lot more lawsuits. No doubt about it. And a lot of it, and I'll give you a good example in my profession. The two things that are big lawsuits are a DVT, a blood clot going to the lung, okay? And the other one would be a pain syndrome. It's called RSD, or complicated regional pain syndrome. And how you get jammed up is a lot of doctors don't recognize it, or they don't do something to prevent it. So, it's failure to diagnose or failure to treat. So let me give you an example. You come in and you had an ankle fracture, and I'm going to take care of it. Well, it's a very low chance of you having an ankle fracture throwing a blood clot to your lung and killing you. But let's just say, your father had a blood clot, or your brother had a blood clot, and I didn't pick that up on the interview, right? Because there's criteria for you to be high risk or low risk, and now you throw a blood clot, and then you die, and so I say, well, you don't need to have prophylactic blood thinners for an ankle fracture. Right. It's not in the literature. But then, the lawyer will say, well, yeah, but his brother died from it. That increases his risk, which means he should have been on a blood thinner. So you got kind of, now, is that malpractice? Yeah, I mean, it could be, maybe not. So you got people who have these complicated situations. So now the next thing is, I'll give you another one, pain syndrome. It's rare, but people get it, and if you don't, it's hard to diagnose sometimes.
Explain that.
Where let's just say you had a sprained ankle, or I get a good example. I had a patient. A young girl. She was 16, 17 years old. She was working on the beach as a beach, check the badges. But she was walking on the beach, and it was hot. The beach was hot. The sand gets hot in New Jersey. So she kind of had like a little burn on her feet. That went into a pain syndrome. She wound up in the hospital in Philadelphia. Really bad. Just the pain gets worse and worse and worse. It's all the time, 24 hours a day. It never goes away. That's called the pain syndrome, RSD. And you can miss that.
Is it on the bottom of the foot, or
doesn't matter where it is? It
top?
could be your shoulder, it could be your eye, it could be your head, it could be pain syndrome. It could have twisted your neck.
For this girl,
it's on the bottom of the foot where she walked on the sand.
Bottom, yeah.
She walked on the sand, so she burnt the bottom of her feet. But it could be a sprained ankle. it brings it on. It could be, and it just, so you get somebody with a sprained ankle, they should be better in maybe, 6 to 8 weeks, but they're not. They're lingering on. They got pain. And that's what Dr. Jasper works with. It's called allogaria, pain out of proportion to the stimuli or to the injury, and you touch it, with your finger, and they jump off the table. So my point is that it's getting, and you didn't see a lot of that years ago. So it's getting more complicated to treat medicine, to treat these patients. Can you imagine now you're a doctor and your employer is telling you got 5 minutes, 10 minutes with the patient, or you got to operate on everybody and things have to, move along real quick. Yeah. And then I know a kid, was a football player, and he had a compound fracture in his leg, it was broken through the skin. And they fixed it with hardware and they closed it. This was in a football field. I wouldn't have closed it. I would have left it open. But here's the thing. You put an external fixator. You go in, 10 o'clock, 11, 12 o'clock at night, whatever it is. You go to the OR, you wash it up. You put a fixator on. All right, then you got to go back. You got to watch the kid. He's in a hospital. And then, and so you say, well, make more money. But then sometimes, it becomes your time frame. So close it up. So we're doing, and then he develops an infection or a compartment syndrome. So what I'm saying is that there's a lot of things going on with medicine. There's a lot of pressure on doctors, to be quicker, to see more volume, because the money's not there anymore. You say, well, you're crazy, Mike. No, if you look at, I used to be a first assist with Dr. Kadersha doing gallbladders. I'd help him. I had in the state of New Jersey, I'm able to do that. And you need 2 surgeons in there in case, the main surgeon drops dead. So I don't know how many gallbladders I did, but they used to get paid about $3,500 for a gallbladder, maybe $4,000. That's 90 days post-op. You take care of them for 90 days. And I would get 20% assistant fee or 10%, whatever. And, 2 o'clock at night, the patient's sick, now it's about $600. That's what they get paid. So it's, and it's not worth it. And, it's a very, the hospital has to hire somebody. And colonoscopies, Medicare is $150. I mean, it's going down. And what's happening is, the big guys come in, and what they're doing is they're squeezing the insurance companies. Because they're so big. If you own, the majority of general surgeons in a geographic area, you could tell the insurance company, we want higher rates. We don't want $600 for a gallbladder. We want $1,200 or whatever. Right. And the different states are different. So it's a whole crazy thing. But basically, what I'm saying is that, generally speaking, the care is going down. Maybe there's more malpractice. There's always been that. And I don't know. I haven't done the studies on that, whether or not it's really true or not. I could see though that if there's money to be made, the lawyers are going to, go after that route and try to find, some kind of abnormality somewhere. Right. You got to remember, though, most of these malpractice cases need a doctor to testify and say there was a problem. And like you said, there's a lot of doctors out there who'll do that, because they make money. So it's kind of crazy. I don't see that. I still see a lot of unnecessary stuff. And then these big groups get, a ton of lawyers. So they get right to the edge, of doing stuff that, is maybe
unethical, or
well, it's just, like I said, whether or not it's necessary surgically wise, or do you need to do the procedure? And then the second thing is, does it meet the criteria of the insurance? It gets complicated.
Yeah, it does.
It gets real complicated. But anyway, just my point is that if you're going to go get a surgery done, nowadays, if you're going to get a procedure done, go check out the doctor's credentials. This is what cracks me up. People, my uncle went to them, or, who recommended them? My friend. I said, did you check out their credentials? No. You need to look at if they're board certified, what their experience is. Like for me, if you look at me on paper, I'm board certified in foot surgery. I'm board certified in reconstructive foot and ankle, rear foot. And I'm up to date on my credentials. And I'm on staff at 5 hospitals. And, I'm a full attending, So there's a lot of proof that I have, I'm not a crazy person. I'm not, right. So go and...
It's also, I'm more impressed with somebody like you who does that, who goes out, learns more, he's everywhere. You got your fingers on the pulse of what's going on. that's the guy I need to see.
Every 3 months, I have to take a test online for my boards, and it's not easy. My point is, go do your due diligence. Not every doctor out there is good. Yeah. Not every doctor has your best interest in mind as far as, what's necessary and not.
Because sometimes you need a doctor who's going to know when not to do something. And that's more. Oh, that's almost more important than having to get something done.
Well, let me ask you. You got a woman, man or woman. They got 3 kids. They have $400,000 of student loans.
Yeah.
And now they're out, and they got to make money. They got to pay for the loan. I mean, that's a real problem. Yeah. And then insurance companies are going down and down and down in what they're paying you. There's more and more paperwork that needs to be done. You still got the malpractice stuff. You got to have malpractice insurance is going up and up and up. Like you said, there's more cases, but they're so it's a double-edged sword. I don't know where it's going to go in this country. It's going to become a crisis eventually, because it's not. Right now, like I said, the big companies are in there. And they're even the playing field somewhat because they're working on contracts and know. But anyway, let's go. I want to talk. Let's change this up. So be careful who you deal with. Be careful. Just make sure you understand that there's a lot of people out there that got through the process now because of maybe not how best they are, mediocrity. How good they are, but because of their minority status, which. I'm all for that. I mean, but you got to have the best in the best, like you said. Yeah. Somebody's going to operate on you. Are you that magnanimous that you're going to put your life in their hands because they got it because they were, whatever.
And what did you do? You picked the first one you saw in the phone book, and that's the guy you're going to trust.
No.
You got to look around. You got to ask questions.
Right.
Asking questions. Now, that's the biggest
thing. Check their criteria.
That's
check their
the biggest
credentials.
thing I think a patient doesn't do is ask questions.
Right. Just check their credentials.
Yeah.
Ask them how many procedures did you do like this? All right. So let's go back to the videotape here. This is another one. So everybody's talking about, they're sending all these immigrants, back home, and they got rights and everything. So I like this one here. This was 19 days ago. I picked this up because you could go on the internet, and this is every day, day in and day out, all across the country. It's getting better now because they're locking these people up. But here, 3 illegal immigrants. I want to make a point. Illegal immigrants charged after one allegedly driving drunk slams into car, killing 22-year-old. Okay? Yeah. So here it is. 3 illegal immigrants were arrested in Texas after fleeing a fiery drunk driving crash that killed 22-year-old driver, according to police. I can't even pronounce these guys' names. They were in a Ford F-150, swerved onto the shoulder, and smashed into a stopped car. There's a car probably on the side of the road with some maintenance issues. So here's the one guy right here.
Oh, he looks happy.
Yeah, right guy there. Another guy there. Looks like he's stoned out of his mind.
Are they the same people?
No. And another guy there.
Stop it.
Yeah, they're all.
Are they triplets?
Yeah. So impact forced the stopped car to hit a concrete barrier, which burst into flames, with first responders finding a 22-year-old man dead behind the wheel. And so there, and this is the thing too. Here's the thing: Biden let all these people in, and they gave him some kind of pass, and so they say, "Oh, they're not illegal. We let them in here." It's bullshit. They went overboard. They were, cracks me up. Right now, there's judges saying you can't fly these people out of here to El Salvador, right? You can't take a criminal alien, illegal alien, and fly him out of the country, but nobody said shit. No judge said anything when Biden was flying him from friggin' Mexico
to all over this
country.
Yeah.
And one guy I know for sure was that Lincoln Riley, whatever. He was brought with a plane from I think Texas up to wherever. Yeah. So I mean, that's why these people in this country are friggin' cuckoo for cocoa. They're stupid.
There's a video going around on YouTube and everywhere, just all over the internet, of Pelosi when she was much younger, before she married that crook, and she's saying the same thing that Donald Trump is saying now. Not just about the border,
right.
Everything, exactly what he's doing.
Right.
But not just the border. Right. She was also talking about doing the same thing with the tariffs.
Yeah.
Now, enough time passes. See, that's the difference between somebody who's trying to help the country and a politician. A politician will flip-flop sides to suit themselves over the decades. Okay, and that's what happens with the Democrats. One second they're for it, the next second they're not, and then the next second they're back for it again. Just so long as the votes swing their way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, just continue here. The impact killed the guy. So they jumped out of the truck. They got the one guy. These were all in their 20s and 30s. They all ran away. They all got arrested, and they were all. One guy was charged with manslaughter while intoxicated, and one count of collision death. I hope all these guys. Well, I don't know what they're going to do here. To me, I think the best answer is adjudicate them, lock them up, whatever they serve time, and then when they're done, deport them out of here. So that's that. You could go back to me. This is every day, day in and day out. I think that what a lot of people, when you talk about the Democrats and Republicans, a lot of them are very similar. Unless it affects them.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Right?
Not in my backyard.
Right. But when it does affect them, right? There's a big story. It's a big difference. Now, do we have any evidence of that? Yeah. When I think it was DeSantis, it, or Texas, they sent a bunch of illegals up to Martha's Vineyard, which I've been to.
That's right. I remember.
They got them out of there.
Toot sweet.
About not even 12 hours.
Yeah.
They got them out of there. And just so you know, Barack Obama has a house up there.
Oh, sure.
All the liberals. So not in my backyard. Yeah. So it's one of those things. It's one of those things where, when you look at this stuff, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But my point is that the other thing
people have the shortest memories for this stuff, though.
Oh yeah, well
and that's the criminal truth there. Okay, you can watch whatever side news you want, but remember the past. Remember what they don't
want. No, they don't hear that. So they all remember with Biden was the best president ever. It was all over the internet for when he was starting to run. Best president, the greatest guy, blah blah blah. And then as soon as it realized that he wasn't, then they went with Harris. And she's the greatest thing since sliced cheese. All that. Now in the meantime, Biden. Remember when there was a bill that the Democrats wanted to push through for immigration reform? They said the only way to stop the immigration from the border is to have really good legislation. We have to have it. And Trump said, no, it's bullshit. And everybody's like, he's a scumbag. And, this is...
Biden, I just heard this yesterday. But Biden is saying, I don't know what I can do. I don't know. And everybody's saying, like, what do you mean you don't know what to do? You're the guy who can do it.
No, so so that's my point. Let me finish the point.
Yeah.
So what happened is, I want to set up the story.
Okay.
So the Democrats were saying we need legislation. You talk about memory. The Democrats said we need legislation. We need that's the only way to stop this invasion, which was bullshit. So now Biden loses, Trump gets in. There was no legislation. There was no congressional legislation. Trump did it with executive orders, close the border. It's down to zero, or almost zero. Yeah. So what? So remember. So let's go back.
And Mike, just for the record, that was done nearly overnight.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So go back to all of these idiots on internet. Like I watch JoJo from New Jersey and these other people.
Yeah, I do too.
So I asked her, she come on our show if she wants. Why? She's. It looks like to me. I don't know if she's being paid by the Democratic Party, but anyway,
so many people are.
Why you bitched about this legislation? Obviously, was not necessary. Did you have retraction? Did you go back and say, "Hey, I was wrong with that"? Or "Hey, I was wrong with Biden. He did have cognizant issues." So you go on and on and on. But the thing with this country is there's still if Trump does not get this economy in line, which I think he's going to.
Oh, he totally is. Yeah, he totally is.
Midterm elections, the Democrats will get it, and they'll be impeaching him and going the whole way. What I think happened, and talk about a little politics, is that the Democratic Socialist / Communist Party lost, and there's people still who are communist, and they want open borders for whatever reason. I think they want to destroy the country, but they want to have the Chinese model, which is interesting because now we're going after China. What's the Chinese model? What's the Chinese government? No freedom of speech, none. No freedom of religion. They say, oh, they got freedom of religion. They don't.
And you can just go missing if you speak
right. So
the
no
wrong
freedom,
words.
no freedom from fear.
Yeah. No freedom to express yourself
and
or speak freely.
Right. Now, and also, there's freedom from want.
You gotta watch it.
Right. And I just saw an article somebody put out there, and it was a pretty interesting article about what the wages are in China. And if you look at there's about 1.5 billion, probably 200-300 million are very wealthy people.
Yeah.
The rest are probably slaves. Now they say, oh, they got this kind of income, that kind of income. Maybe not. But the bottom line is there's two things about being wealthy. It's how much you're making, how much money you have, and also your freedoms. And and how important those freedoms are: freedom of religion, freedom from speech, free speech. And a lot of places don't have that. I don't believe you have that in China. So you could look at the things. Did you see the AI commercials? They're coming out with commercials now from China, supposedly. And they got like people sewing. Big fat people, Americans, and it's like, make America great. Did you see that? I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't
oh,
see
they're
that.
great commercials. Oh, they're great. They're so funny.
These AI things, though, I see some that are not like official, and they're on YouTube, and it's like Donald Trump speaking. It's his voice, and you got to look really closely to figure out that's AI. That's getting scarier and scarier because they can just create anything. They can create you. They can create you on the phone talking to another girl and send it to your wife.
Yeah. Let me see. You
know what I mean? I mean, that's frightening.
Well, you're right. American workers. I'm just trying to see workers. What was I'm trying to think what they talk about. But no, AI. What's the other thing where they put they go after you to? There's a word for it. They'll make you look like you're doing porn or something. What was that?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, you'll be you're filming porn or you're watching it.
Yeah. They
they'll also be able to like
a viral AI generated.
Wait a minute, you got to check this out. Good.
Yeah. They'll send strange porn to your computer. Just what I mean, and I know this is just a simple thing, but the night before last, Maggie and I are just putting our heads down to sleep, right?
Yeah.
And Maggie gets a notification on her phone.
Yeah.
Some guy in Pennsylvania, right, has our our Target card number, and that comes out of our debit, right?
Yeah.
So he's buying a Nintendo Switch, AirPods.
Yeah.
So he's raking up almost $1,000 on this card. Thank God they stopped it in its place.
Right.
But we were panicking that night because oh my God,
you're not
going to
bounce.
No,
but
people don't think.
No.
The harm that they do.
They don't give a. They do. They don't care.
Yeah, they don't give a shit.
But I'm talking about where they take your face and put it on like a porn site, and they But you got to check this out. Let me just premise this.
Now they have it where you can have a picture of yourself and pick any celebrity, right?
Right.
Put them side by side,
Right.
and the AI will make you make out with
so,
them.
Yeah. So let me show you this.
So if they can do that, what else can they make you do?
Well, I'm going to show you what
person?
I'm going to show. So here's the thing.
Okay.
So this is videos mocking American working. So, hold on yet. Hold
Okay.
it. Yeah. So what they're going to do? Let me premise this. Let me just get. So what they're doing is, Trump's talking about make America great again. So we're going to bring manufacturing. We're going to be making girdles and pickles and cars and whatever else. So now this supposedly is China, throwing these things out. I think they're funny. I would get pissed. I'm not pissed, but I'm like, fuck you. This is not America. But just check this out.
Okay.
Good. And I'm going to hit it. Put it here. Right. Watch.
Mocking President Trump's push to bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S.
This
has sparked outrage online and intensified the ongoing trade war between Washington and Beijing. The video, created by TikTok user Ben Lau, depicts Americans as overweight, gloomy factory workers toiling in sweatshop-like conditions, all set to traditional Chinese music. In one scene, Americans in gray uniforms assemble iPhones on an assembly line, mimicking scenes from actual Chinese factories. The clip, captioned "Make America Great Again," was designed to mock the Trump administration's tariff agenda and its promises to revive U.S. manufacturing. It was reposted to X by user Damon Chen, where it racked up more than 6 million views. But not everyone found it funny. Commenters on X called out the video for mocking the dignity of blue-collar work, with some sharing personal stories of parents who raised families while working in factories. One user wrote, "My mom worked in a sewing factory for 15 years. It was a good job. Thankful she had it." Another said their father built circuit boards on Long Island in the 1990s, recalling a time when factories brought stability to middle-class American life. Others dismissed the video as propaganda and pointed to China's own use of child labor. Some suggested that if U.S. factories were rebuilt today, they'd be staffed by robots, not humans. The AI video comes as tensions escalate between the U.S. and China, following Beijing's own retaliatory measures. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent blasted the Chinese response, calling it a big mistake. He told CNBC, "We export 1/5 to them of what they export to us, so that is a losing hand for them." As the digital clash unfolds alongside an economic one, the war of words and algorithms between the world's two biggest economies shows no signs of slowing.
All right,
For more stories just like
We're gonna
these,
finish
be
this
sure to
up.
subscribe to the New York Post right here on YouTube.
So let me make a point.
If you're out walking daily,
the Chinese government is we're in war with them. We've been in war with them. They've been coming to this country. They had in the colleges, they're pushing their ideology. They're getting professors. They have a trade deficit with us. They're putting our products here. They're going after our intellectual stuff. They steal, and then they who knows how much they influence these elections with this propaganda shit.
Took over the Panama Canal.
And there's allegations. Well, I don't know if it's true or not that COVID was a weapon of war. It knocked Trump out. If he didn't have COVID, Trump probably would have been president of the United States. Okay, so I'm just saying. And then how much influence did China have on, Facebook, all of these things? Okay, so my point is that we're in a war right now, and it's interesting where this is going to play out.
China's version of TikTok and our version of TikTok are
different.
so different.
Right.
China's is all about educating their people, learning stuff and all of that. Ours is all about girls sneaking little shots of themselves naked, or other just weird stuff.
I'll make a point. Here's the thing.
Mind-numbingly.
People. But here's the thing. People were talking about, Russia and Ukraine. Right. We got to stop Putin now. He's another Hitler. Which, from what I read and when I look, is bullshit.
Yeah.
If you really look at the data there, the information. It's bullshit.
And Putin's on his way out.
But no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. He's not. He's not on his way out. Why is he on his way out?
He's going to be stepping down.
No, he's not. Just listen to me. Listen to me. He just got reelected. Forget about that. Don't go down that rabbit hole.
Wait, he just got reelected?
Yeah.
Oh, then I must have heard that wrong.
No. Listen, Putin. My point is though, people were talking about, Hitler, and we don't stop him. Here's the reality of it. The way I read it is the one who's going to take over the world is China. Now, let's just say Trump didn't get elected and Biden or Harris was still in there. The Chinese government, we have such a big deficit, and we're going to keep on and on and on. We would have collapsed. I mean, you can't have, $2 trillion a year just to pay the interest on our debt. It's $30 trillion in debt. It's unsustainable. We were headed for a train wreck, and we're not making anything in this country. And it's going to get to the point where we would be in a conflict with China. You could look at the matrix. You could read the books. You could extrapolate out, 5-6 chess moves down the road. We would have been in an armed conflict. And you know what? We may lose that one. Okay? Because China would get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So they are the ones that are probably the real threat. They have, they're a communist model. Same thing with Russia. But I don't think Russia has, they got the nuclear weapons, but, China's got money. So anyway, now Trump is going after them and financially and everything else.
Taking businesses out of their...
Right. And going to make us strong. When you had COVID, think about the history. I couldn't get masks or what do you call it?
Respirators?
Yeah, shields. You couldn't get any masks.
Yeah.
You couldn't get the gloves, surgical gloves, nothing, because it was all made in China. Our pharmaceuticals are made in China. So we need to reverse that. And I don't see how you're going to do it other than what Trump's doing right now.
Right.
So if you think about it, if you believe what I just said, that maybe 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, we could be in an armed conflict, a major war with Russia, with China, okay, that they have the designs to take over the world, okay? Then this is the best way. Nip it in the bud now. What's different than the people who were telling me a year ago, 2 years ago, that Putin was the bad guy and he's going to take over the world or Europe?
Yeah.
Okay, and so what about China? So these tariffs, I'd rather have tariffs than sending United soldiers to fight a war or on our own soil. Yeah. Now, the other thing that I'm concerned about,
as far as the tariffs go, what's fair is fair, man.
Well, yeah, but the other thing is how many Chinese immigrants came here illegal in this country. Now, according to what I read, there's tens of thousands of them, and that could be dangerous. So there's a lot of shit going on here, Jeremy. Yeah. A lot. Remember World War II when before with Germany, there was a lot of German spies in the United States. There was a lot of shit that went down. Yeah. That's one of the reasons people think that when Pearl Harbor got bombed by the Japanese, and then Germans declared war on us, we didn't just lock up the Japanese Americans out west. They locked up a lot of American Italians and because they were against us too, and American Germans. In fact, there was 200 Germans still left in Ellis Island after the war was over because they were considered pretty shaky. And then it was a whole thing. A lot of them went down to Argentina. But my point is that this is a very interesting scenario.
Can you see a new Cold War being started, but
it's not so we have it already.
Not seeing the results. It's really
been going on. No, it's been going on already. It's not starting. It's been going on. Yeah. We have. That's my point. It's been going on for 20 years. We've been battling with China for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
So it's not a new Cold War, and
it's still a Cold War. That's
the
thing.
No, it's not. Well, it's not kinetic. Well, it depends on what you say. Here's what's happening. I just showed you that TikTok. Yeah. That's part of war.
That is.
Okay. They're doing propaganda. Yeah. They're going after our colleges. They're going after, buying our bonds, economic. So they're...
And this is nothing new. The technology just got better. They used to, enemies used to fly over and drop down pamphlets of paraphernalia and stuff to try to educate the opposite people about what's right with them and turn against your own. Yeah, now we have technology like Dr. Michael Kachmar was just saying, where they can make up whatever vision they want to make you think. That's mental, man.
Right. There's a book you should read. It's called The Art of War, and it's by China put out. Yeah. It's you don't need to have kinetic if you do it right. They were headed towards taking us over, slowly but surely. Capturing our elite. Maybe Biden was captured. That's the allegation. Maybe some politicians, maybe governors. And so you give them money or you threaten them or whatever it is. There's collusion. You got to remember, Nazi Germany was influenced in this country. They had rallies. They had Nazi rallies. There was people in this country who were all for Hitler.
And after the war, we welcomed them into our country. That's how we got to the moon.
I mean, there was a lot of people didn't like the Jews, So you could go on and on. My point being is right now is that a lot of people who are on the internet are either myopic, they don't see the bigger picture, or they're being paid or influenced to look the other way or to have a position because it benefits them. Okay, there's a lot of people who are making money off of this kind of stuff. So I think it's gonna be interesting to play out. All I know is this: if it doesn't work and the economy doesn't come around, Trump's going to be, the midterm election is going to be a bloodbath.
That's when everything slaps him in the face.
But I think that
if he can keep this going, if he can make this happen. Right.
I was just watching Victor Davis Hanson. He said an interesting thing about the trade wars. With imbalance of trade, let's give a good example of Vietnam or other countries. You have the tariffs, which are one imbalance. So let's just say for cars, we have no tariff on selling a car coming from, say, Vietnam, if they make cars there. But Vietnam has a 200% tariff on our cars going there because there's no American cars in Vietnam.
Say Canada, because
No,
what's happening.
but let's just talk about Vietnam as examples. Okay, Vietnam wants to settle and negotiate, so we're going to bring those equal, so no tariffs on each side. But there's also other things that they could do. They could say, listen, we don't want your car because it's got bad chemicals in it. Or we don't want your beef because there's mad cow disease. Yeah. Or so there's other ways, or we're going to put a tax on it inside the country, not a tariff. Yeah. But if you want to buy an American car and drive it around, you got to pay a gas tax or some shit like that. Yeah. There's other things that are involved in the imbalance, and they need to be addressed. But what Victor Davis Hanson was saying, let's not address them right now. That's phase 2. Let's just get the tariffs under control. So, it's more complicated than you think. It's not just tariffs. It's the like China. If the allegation is that they're taking over our institutions, they have, Chinese police, right? So you could deal with that, but there's also the tariff issue because remember Trump had tariffs. Biden didn't pull them. They still had tariffs. So, Trump's putting new tariffs on them.
They had tariffs on us.
For years.
Years. They milked us. That's why Trump's saying that he wants more than what's fair because he feels that they owe us so much money.
Right. I think there's a bigger strategy here, and I give you this.
Oh, yeah. I think the strategy is like he's trying to scare the shit out of them so he can bring them to a table. That's really what these tariffs really do anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Listen, these people are very smart and they are motivated. And, there's maybe this is 3 levels of chess being played. So we have no idea.
3-dimensional chess.
Yeah. And, I would just let it play out. But people are, so panicky and also so quick to judge. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about the last thing, and I want to pack it in. Let's give it 5 more minutes, and go to the video here. This is another thing that I want to talk about right now. So we have, my big thing about pot is interesting. It's being legalized in a lot of states. The federal government hasn't legalized yet, and I don't think it's going to be legalized because marijuana is a dangerous drug. I'm sorry, it is. I don't give a shit when anybody says, I got a thing over here. Where's that picture? Is it over there, Jeremy? Let's see if we can see it.
The camel cigarette?
Let me see. Yeah, there's a. Can we see it? I don't know if we can see it.
Hey, hold on.
Where'd I put it?
It's right up.
Oh, you can't see it. Okay, you can't see it.
There.
So, back in the days, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they said cigarettes was not dangerous, didn't cause cancer. For years and years and years. And then finally now, I don't think anybody in their right mind would think that cigarette smoking is okay. It causes cardiovascular disease, closes up your arteries, your heart, and it causes cancer. Marijuana has a lot of bad side effects. And what we're seeing more and more is this psychosis in young kids. Got to understand, Jeremy, when you and I were young, in the 70s and 80s, marijuana was there, but maybe it was 2%. THC, now it could be 80, 90%. It's the power. It's 100
it's very powerful,
very powerful,
very potent.
Right, and then also you got these delivery systems, which is like vaping, But even if you smoke it regularly, and what's happening is that these young kids with developing brains are getting these really bad psychosis, which is and you could read about psychosis, but I just want this is an article that came out. It said Black brain spots reveal possible direct link between cannabis use and psychosis. There is definitely psychosis in people who use marijuana, no doubt about it, and schizophrenia, and it goes on the article here, but cannabis use has been associated with psychosis, no doubt about it, and that's alternate behavior, and I don't think that you could get out of this. I don't think that. Go back to me. That young kids should be using marijuana. Now I'm okay. Now I'm going to make this point, and then we're going to pack it in because I've dealt with this for years. So about 2-3 years ago, New Jersey had a vote for marijuana.
Right.
And if you looked at it, the bill, it said basically this: got to be 21 years old to smoke. Okay. You can't smoke outside. Got to be in your house. you know, you can only have so much on you outside, you know, walking around, and you got to buy it from a legal distributor. That was it. So the bill passed. Sounded reasonable. Then Governor Murphy put an addendum to the bill. I call it the butt bill, B-U-T. I'd say B-U-T-T, but you know, but it said but.
Yeah,
But if you're under 21, you can smoke it anywhere you want. This was a law.
No, it was
you go back and look at it. People say, "Oh, you're fucking crazy, Mike." Excuse my language. Yeah. Under 21, smoke anywhere you want. Stupid. And not just because it wasn't just marijuana. It was hashish. Just say continue with scrubbing up. Yeah. Say continue. Yeah. Also alcohol. And then what it also said that the police could not tell your parents if you got caught smoking marijuana or drinking out in public. So and if the cops did contact your parents or arrested you, whatever, they could be charged themselves. The cops could be charged.
Yeah.
Okay, civil rights violations, all kinds of shit. It actually was a felony charge. That was for about a year, and everybody fought it, and they kind of reversed some of that. But I remember being in Seaside Heights, couldn't stop people smoking on the beach. 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, and you couldn't even give him a ticket, and you couldn't tell him stop smoking.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you had a explosion of young people smoking marijuana, and still to this day. Now, Seaside Heights just put an ordinance: no smoking on the beach or the boardwalk. No pot, no nicotine, nothing. So. We'll see how that works with regard to, if somebody sues. But it looks like now it's changing. And especially now with Trump in there, I think that the Justice Department's going to put a kibosh on that. In that, you can't smoke, okay? But this is what this governor did. This is what a Democratic governor did. Yeah. Now, you can say what you want, and if you go look, why did he do that? What was his reasonings for doing that? He said in the literature, because a lot of cops were going after the black kids and Hispanic kids for smoking, not the white kids. That was his allegation. So we had to let everybody smoke and take.
It was that same. It was that same line of thought.
You see what I'm saying?
Made people open up the asylums. Well, there's some people in there that shouldn't be, so maybe we should let them all out.
All right. Well, yeah, right. So what happens now is. You have this problem, and then vaping is another one. And it's interesting because state of New Jersey and a lot of the politicians, and these are the people who, big money in the state, lawyers, politicians, which are sometimes the same, want to have it legalized because they can make a ton of money. And you go look who's making the money in the state now. But here's the thing. They thought they were, smoking marijuana, when you smoke it and burn it, it's the same chemicals that are in cigarettes. Yeah. So the cigarette industry is saying, well, listen, how are you going to legalize marijuana when then you could be you're taxing us, penalizing us because you say we cause cancer, and the cigarette industry has to pay money for that. Yeah. Okay, because a certain amount of people get sick. Then the pills, oral, I hear is not that good because you don't get real consistent highs. It depends on what you eat before or after, how much fat you have in your stomach. So it's not a good absorption rate. Right. So the thing was vaping, and everybody thought that was a home run. Well, now all these kids, wind up in the hospital because of vaping, so that's out of the picture. So now you're back to eating or smoking it. And you're going to see 20, 30 years from down the road here, people are going to have cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, cancer, everything. It's going to take a while, but you're going to start seeing this stuff because more and more people are going to be smoking, and they're going to be smoking, 2-3 times a day. Some people do. It's bullshit. It's going to be the same shit 20, 30 years from now. People are going to be suing not the tobacco industry, but the people who are making the marijuana. Whatever company that is. I don't know if there's any big companies now. It's like a lot of, small mom and pop, and then they get bigger and bigger. It's big money. They just opened one up in our local area in Pine Beach.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they opened up a dispensary. They're opening up.
But I did learn. Like I had a buddy before they said it was okay, kind of in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. He was. He bought stock in plantation, pot fields and stuff, and he was making a pretty penny until they started making it okay-ish in all the states. Now he's not making any money off that at all because everybody's growing it.
Yeah, I got you.
So those guys aren't making money, but just all these individuals, the stores that open up, a lot of the time they're making that stuff in the back room and putting it all together.
Well, all I know is I hear some, say my patients, but I've heard people who what do you call it? Tell me that they I'm trying to get this to work here. That they say that it's cheaper to buy it on the black market than it is from the people, from the dispensaries. I don't know. Did you hear that? I don't know if you heard that.
No, it's much cheaper getting them through the dispensaries. I mean, they got like, if they've got ones that they want to get rid of, then they're on sale, and the sale prices, I mean, when you're normally paying over $65 for a cartridge or something like that, and now they're on sale or clearance,
right?
And they're only $20. Well, all right, you're going to be buying a whole lot more, aren't you? And then they give you freebies of gummies, and now they're coming out with magic mushroom gummies, and also gummies that are going to have Ozempic in them, or the active ingredient.
Okay. That's crazy. All right.
But their ideas are going crazy. All over the place.
All right, Jeremy, give us we're going to get out of here.
Sure thing.
I have enough of this. I'm getting me.
Get enough of this show.
So give us our webpage and contact number. So thank you, everyone. We're going to sign off soon.
So this has been Scrubbing Up with Dr. Michael Kachmar. You can go to Jersey Shore Foot and Leg Center.com and find out everything you want to about him. You can also call to make an appointment with Dr. Michael Kachmar at 732-269-1133.
Good.
All right. So you guys take care.
All right, Jeremy, thank you. Everyone, have a safe weekend. Catch us on our podcasts.
Yeah.
We're on Rumble. We're also on Instagram. We're all over the place. So anyway, have a nice weekend. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.